Hey everyone, I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And in today's video, I am going to be talking about the weekend box office. So, this was a crazy past weekend for the box office, as we had the Barbenheimer weekend just take the box office by storm. This was the fourth biggest weekend for the box office in history, actually. So before I start covering all of the other narratives that took place during this past weekend at the box office, I want to make sure I mention this right now at the beginning of this video, that I used to do a series called Box Office Report on my other channel, actually. The reason why I had stopped doing those videos wasn't because I didn't like doing those videos. It was because, I had so much other content that I was doing that, just doing that series as well was just a lot, actually. So there came weeks where I couldn't just get to it, and then I just included, that specific type of a video on the podcast, actually, But now, since I've kind of, been able to manage my time a lot better, compared to, obviously last year, I'm thinking just moving forward, we'll just be doing a video series of the box office, obviously. And since we have a lot of other issues going on in Hollywood right now, given the fact that we have the writer's strike in full effect, there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about for the box office in general, because the movies that are coming out right now are inherently going to have to stay in theaters a lot longer, because right now, if you guys are unaware of this, the writer's strike has caused a lot of the actors and writers to basically halt on any movie and TV show and even video game production that they were currently on. Now, for Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise is, I'm pretty sure, still currently filming Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, which is coming out in 2024, right? So let's start right here talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So personally for me, I ended up watching all of the Mission Impossible movies at the tail end of 2021 into 2022, because Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning was supposed to come out in 2022, but it ended up getting pushed back until 2023. Now, if you guys know how many hurdles and issues this movie had during its production phase, this movie was being filmed during the pandemic. They had to expend a whole lot of money on the movie itself with filming locations and set pieces, and they had to, I'll also take out more money from one of the other production studios that were also financing the film as well. The movie has been through a lot of issues, to say the least. Not because maybe there's problematic cast people on set or actors, it's just all the circumstances surrounding this movie made it a lot harder for it to eventually come out. Remember, the last Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Fallout, came out back in 2018, and that movie is now still currently the best performing movie of the Mission Impossible series at the box office, right? So Mission Impossible 7, before it comes out, Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan are battling with each other to see who's going to get those IMAX screens, actually. They are very, very big proponents of the IMAX screens. So you also had Tom Cruise settling on getting Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning to come out before Christopher Nolan's movie Oppenheimer, right? You guys remember Christopher Nolan, because Christopher Nolan has been a longtime director of Warner Brothers. He left Warner Brothers during 2021 when they chose to put their entire film slate simultaneously releasing on HBO Max, which was called at that current moment in time, and in theaters the same day. So Christopher Nolan was looking for a studio to basically, finance his next movie, and he landed on Universal Studios, actually. And no, Netflix was never going to be an option for Christopher Nolan, actually, okay? So, Mission Impossible 7, issues during production, COVID, all that stuff, right? Then it comes out that the movie's budget has been extremely, extremely bloated compared to what it originally was, obviously. Then you also have Christopher Nolan and Tom Cruise fighting for those IMAX screens. Then Warner Brothers is like, hey, we'll just release Barbie the same week as Christopher Nolan's, newest movie. And that, I do believe, was intentional. Now, when you're talking about Mission Impossible, these movies do fairly well at the box office, which is crazy considering the fact there's only 6 of them, actually, and they come out varying degrees of years apart from each other. You know, my favorite Mission Impossible movie is Mission Impossible Fallout, actually, and my other favorite one is Ghost Protocol. Then I like Mission Impossible 3, and after that it's Rogue Nation. Then it's a toss-up between Mission Impossible 1 and 2. I don't really get... You see, for me, I didn't hate Mission Impossible 2 when I first saw it. I think it's just okay, you know? So, apparently, the Mission Impossible movie, before this one came out, with the biggest drop-off at the box office between its opening weekend to the second week, was actually Mission Impossible 2. Mission Impossible 2 came out when, like, 2002, 2003, actually? So this movie having a huge drop-off doesn't imply the movie itself is bad, but it's also what people have been talking about. When you release too many big blockbuster tentpoles together, well, that will inherently cause people to choose one or the other. Then, since people already had most likely seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, of course they're gonna go see Barbie or Oppenheimer. So that would inherently take money away from Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. The thing here people need to understand is it's not really about how a film starts, it's about how it finishes. Now, there are obviously things that'll eventually come out with movies during opening weekends where you can easily see if a movie will actually flop compared to the early box office projections versus what is actually made opening weekend. Mission Impossible had literally just came out, and then you also have the added aspect of 2 more big blockbuster tentpoles coming out as well, which could easily have taken, you know, ticket sales away from Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And remember, now since we have the writer's strike, like I previously mentioned, the thing here to understand is, well, since we have a writer's strike going on, studios won't be taking these movies out of theaters anytime soon to put them on their streaming services. They're most likely, if the movies keep performing very well, keep them in theaters actually for quite some time. Remember last year with Top Gun Maverick with Tom Cruise, he specifically kept the movie in 3 months, almost to 4 months, because the movie was performing very, very well. His last movie hit $1 billion at the box office. His first ever $1 billion movie in general for Tom Cruise, which is crazy because this guy has been producing banger after banger after banger movie for Hollywood in general, right? So there's a lot of things to talk about as well, and looking at how the box office results played out, as I'm going to go over the information right now for you guys, seeing as how Barbie and Oppenheimer outperformed Mission Impossible to a certain extent makes perfect sense, honestly. Now, I want to make sure I also mention this as well. Just because a movie is making more money than another movie doesn't mean it's a better movie. That is all subjective, and that is up to you as a consumer to obviously decide for yourself, you know? So, we have the first article right here that we're going to cover, and then we'll cover the other portion of it being Mission Impossible 7 suffers worst box office drop in franchise history. Mission Impossible 7 has suffered the worst box office drop in franchise history in its second weekend. Dead Reckoning Part 1 hit theaters on July 12th to rave reviews, becoming the first highest reviewed movie in the long-running series. This resulted in Tom Cruise's blockbuster earning $56.2 million domestically over its opening weekend and $80 million over its 5-day opening weekend total. This 5-day number was 3% more than the franchise's previous best, 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout. However, the sustained success of the latest Mission Impossible film had been in question, seeing as it was released 1 week before the incoming box office juggernauts Barbie and Oppenheimer. And the social media raving about which movie do you see, Barbie or Oppenheimer, was absolutely insane, right? And that just goes to show you just good advertising will get people to watch your movies. And I know there's been a lot of back and forth in this conversation as well, and I've thrown my hat into this ring as well, which is the reason why people would inherently go watch movies in general. It's not because it's mostly a franchise name attached to it, which obviously has some merit to it as well. It's the added aspect that it's interest. If someone is not interested in watching, they're just not going to see. And since we have the aspect of streaming now, most people will just be like, well, I'll just wait till streaming. Mission Impossible 7 is hit hard at the box office. According to new data, Mission Impossible 7 suffered the biggest second weekend box office drop in franchise history. The film saw an estimated 64% drop in gross from its domestic opening weekend after earning a meager $19.5 million domestically. Now keep in mind, this movie has an above $200 million budget, right? Not including a heavy marketing campaign. So for this movie to even make profit, I'm talking about actual profit, money you get to actually keep yourself, also not counting the other, people who get their cut, like obviously the movie theater gets their cut of the ticket sales and the studio gets their cut and everyone paid. This movie's gonna have to be making at least like $800 to $900 million. Let's be honest here. And when you're factoring in how much money the movie has to make, can it actually have enough legs in weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6 to get that money back, Mission Impossible 2, the current franchise record holder for a second weekend drop, saw a 53.3% dip in box office revenue during its theatrical run in 2000. This comes as both Barbie and Oppenheimer opened to great success in theaters, with Oppenheimer specifically pulling Mission Impossible off premium format, i.e. Mission Impossible off premium format screens, i.e. IMAX, because of an exhibitor agreement with director Christopher Nolan. Yeah, Nolan's got the IMAX deals on lock. That's just how it is with him. And what makes sense too, he's been a big proponent of IMAX since he almost started his directing career anyway. The full list of Mission Impossible movies and their second weekend box office drops can be seen below. So right here, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, 64% second weekend box office drop. And then you also have number 2 being Mission Impossible 2, no pun intended. Then you have the original Mission Impossible, 52% right there. And you have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible 3, and Fallout, and you have Ghost Protocol, actually. So what it seems here is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol did even better in its second weekend by a plus 131.2% increase opening weekend as well. So when you're looking at all of these numbers, it's like these aren't indicative of Mission Impossible 7 being bad. It's just, when you have 2 other bigger blockbuster tentpoles coming out, that is what's going to happen, obviously. What is the cause of Mission Impossible 7's woes? While the latest big screen blockbuster seeing a drop in its second weekend at the box office is nothing new, especially during the crowded summer months, Paramount would likely have wanted this Mission Impossible dip to not be as big as it was. After the immense success that was Tom Cruise's last film, Top Gun Maverick, the Mission Impossible studio was probably hoping Dead Reckoning Part 1 would ride some of that Top Gun momentum despite releasing into the hyper-competitive theatrical environment it did. There are a number of factors at play here, though, that are likely to blame for the film's more than 50% drop-off in revenue. The first is that Mission Impossible generally skews older than other summer blockbusters fare. This restricts the franchise's earning potential right from the start. Of course, there are instances where films like this do break ice, i.e. Oppenheimer, but it is an extra encumbrance that the movie has to endure some of its competitors may not. The second, and probably biggest factor, is the fact that Mission Impossible 7 only got 1 week in premium format screens like IMAX. Christopher Nolan, Universal, had an agreement to have the nuclear-era biopic Oppenheimer occupy all the IMAX screens across North America for 3 weeks. This is something that Mission Impossible star Tom Cruise was reportedly pretty pissed about, but nevertheless, Mission Impossible 7 was bumped to smaller screens, meaning the movie could only make so much per screen compared to the more expensive IMAX showings. And yeah, hopefully I'll have time to go to my movie theater to watch Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I do want to watch this movie, I really, really do, but I've just been very busy. So let's cover the other bigger hit at the box office, which is basically Barbie. All right, so you could say woke Barbie destroyed Mission Impossible at the box office. So we had, this other piece of the pie to add to this video as well. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we covered all the Mission Impossible stuff, and then let's go to the part where Barbie is mentioned, okay? Barbie and Oppenheimer shown together an amazing weekend for cinema. Although Mission Impossible 7 setback is bad news for movie franchises, the incredible numbers Barbie and Oppenheimer delivered on their opening weekend is nothing but great step forward for cinemas, especially during the crisis Hollywood is going through right now. After being one of the industries that suffered the most during the pandemic, Barbenheimer debut became the fourth highest opening weekend in all cinema history domestically, and the best one since Avengers Endgame's debut, which holds the first place at the top, following Avengers Infinity War and Star Wars The Force Awakens. I mean, yeah, you just had to be there for those movies, actually, especially Endgame and Infinity War. Those opening weekends were insane. This means Barbie and Oppenheimer have managed to deliver one of the best opening weekends ever without being part of any major franchise or saga. Barbie closed the weekend reaching $337 million worldwide with a budget of $145 million. Yeah, that budget right there, you would need about $600-ish million to technically either you're pretty much out of breaking even, potentially, and or getting to making profit, actually. Oppenheimer earned $174 million, beating all expectations with a budget of $100 million via Variety. In some way, the success of both movies is thanks to the fans' campaign supporting the two projects, which resulted in many people assisting to a double feature. So also keep in mind, Barbie having this big of an opening means that Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie, she's the title holder, NBA, the belt winner of the biggest opening weekend for a female blockbuster movie. The other two being the directors of Captain Marvel and Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman. Captain Marvel released in 2019 and Wonder Woman released in 2017, actually. This year has already had some amazing releases at the box office, such as Super Mario Bros. Movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, or John Wick Chapter 4, but some major franchises have also underperformed, such as Fast X or The Flash, with the latter becoming one of the worst openings in DC history. So, what's also interesting about Barbie is that Barbie, during its first opening weekend, even going into Monday, has already outgrossed The Flash. That's crazy, actually. So, I mean, what this weekend at the box office shows me, and it should show all of you, is that numbers are going to be driven purely just based, honestly, off interest. I mean, if the interest is there, people will check those movies out. It's just how that's going to work, you know? Now, just because a movie, when the box office numbers are total, made less or more than another one of the other movies, doesn't mean they're bad. Remember, like I mentioned before, that is up to you as a consumer to decide for yourself. I'm gonna have my own opinion about movies, my own self, right? But it also is going to be something that you guys have to understand is good or bad is subjective, but numbers are something you can literally look at and go, okay, people were more interested in this than the others. Also, as you guys know, since I know a lot about the box office myself, you know, what I want to also make sure I mention in this video, and I know a lot of you guys are going to watch this, is understanding that when you have such big numbers like that, studios are going to go, okay, do we make sequels to these? Christopher Nolan's not making a sequel to Oppenheimer. Let's be honest, that's not going to happen. And that shouldn't be possible thinking logically, right? Barbie might actually have sequels coming in the future. And, well, Mission Impossible is going to have another movie coming out next year. Of course, they might delay that, actually, depending on how the writer's strike has affected Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. But, you know, as we've seen with the box office this year, is that if the interest is there with a lot of people, they're going to go watch it, you know? Or they'll just wait till streaming, obviously. I mean, I watched a lot of movies this year, and I can't wait to watch other great movies as well, you know? But with the case of Barbie and Oppenheimer, I'm probably just going to wait for those until, like, they get released on VOD. But I do want to kind of go to the theater and see Mission Impossible 7, because obviously, huge Tom Cruise. I love Mission Impossible. Huge Mission Impossible fan right here for myself, you know? But yeah, that is going to be pretty much it. We also, next video, when I'm covering, like, the box office, quote-unquote, we'll be talking about Blue Beetle and the early box office projections for Blue Beetle have been absolutely just a joke, to say the least. But can Blue Beetle actually perform very well in the market landscape right now, given the fact that, we have all this stuff happening and we're going to be going through a content drought very, very soon, depending on how this current writer strike may or may not get solved, actually. So what do you guys think about the Barbenheimer weekend at the box office? I'll see you guys later. Like, comment, and subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I am MSK, and this is Online Cinema Entertainment, your one place for online cinema. All right, see you guys later. Deuces. Peace.